And I must admit that it is pleasant to come back here again, even though the part of the library where I'm talking has changed from the other end of the library. But what hasn't changed is many of the people who I'm looking at right now. I've known many of you for many years, and some of you I've known for 5 minutes. It doesn't really matter, because I say human beings, wherever they are in the world, there's something which we share, and that thing which we share allows us, to do what we say in this poster, to ready, reset, and go on our journey into life. And it's nothing really which hinders you if we know just how to reset. I do have a tablet, not a computer, and not an iPhone, because I don't believe in Buddhism we don't believe in an I. That's why we don't have iPhones. And I don't take selfies, because we believe in no self. But anyway, my favorite button on a computer is always the delete button. Because you've read an email, you've answered something, and then you can delete it. It never needs to be kept. And that's one of the things which I like about spirituality. We don't preserve the past. We can celebrate it, but sometimes the past just clogs up the ability to have a present, and also clogs up the possibility of an interesting, something new future. This is a university, and I think many of you are just drop-ins from outside, but some of you actually, how many of you study here? That's not even 50%. How many of you just enjoy yourself here and party? Is that study? Of course it is. It's being a human being and investigating, yourself and how you relate to others and some of what you can expect in this world. Often, we have many ideas of what we should do and what we shouldn't do. And those ideas of what you should do and what you shouldn't do are an enormous barrier to innovation and to understanding about life. It makes us scared. As for me, I don't know why, but I've always been courageous in my life. And every time I've seen fear, I realize just how that almost kills what we call life. And so, there's many, many times. I'm a forest monk. I was trained in Thailand and now in Australia the last 40 years. Whenever I've been in jungles, I realize there's so many of those animals regard me as dinner. And many of those animals are dangerous. But being afraid doesn't help at all. If those animals are going to eat you, they just do it, whether you're afraid or not. I remember asking some of the old monks, and they would always say, there's no need to worry about things like tigers and bears and big king cobras. They used to say there's been never any evidence of a tiger killing and eating a monk. Now, I was smart enough to ask these big teachers, how would there be evidence? If a tiger ate a monk, he'd eat the whole of him, there'd be nothing left. And the tiger wouldn't confess. So how would we know whether tigers eat monks or not? So because of that, after a while, living sort of in the jungles, and these were days, when there were real tigers, there was real jungle. And when I went into the jungles in Thailand, especially northeast Thailand, one thing I always noticed There were rainforests, and they were always fragrant. And one of the reasons why was in those great systems of forests with bushes, there was always something in flower, which means the fragrance of those jungles was just so delightful. And number two, if ever you did see a wild animal, you just say to it that it's bad karma to eat a monk. So you did see many wild animals. I once saw a tiger once. He was actually closer to me than you are in the front there, only a few feet away. But I wasn't afraid. It was strange. You saw a huge big tiger, and I never had any fear. You know why? Because it was in the zoo, it was in a cage, and I was outside the cage. but nevertheless, what you did see many times in the jungle were snakes. They used to go all over the place. And sometimes they would actually crawl on you. I was doing some official chanting one day, and one of the monks right in front of me, I had to stop the chanting because I saw on the back another head came up. It was a cobra. The cobra crawled up his back. And the cobra turned around to look at the monk. The monk looked around to see the cobra. And they were just surprised. When you actually live with wild animals, you realize that they don't want to hurt a monk or hurt a layperson, hurt anybody. They were just crawling around, having a good time, investigating. They weren't up to any bad intentions. And so they looked at each other, and I was looking at both of them. And the monk just very, very softly just pulled down his robe so the snake could very slowly just crawl away. They were never dangerous. And in fact, that sometimes you would step on a snake and you'd apologize afterwards. Honestly, he did that. Because say, look, I've got no harmful intention to you, snake. And the snake would look, you didn't need to be a great meditator to read the snake's mind. It was just afraid. And so you just make sure you can move away so the snake could go one way, you can go the other way. All the animals in the forest were like that. And so even these days, even in Australia, one of the most dangerous of snakes in West Australia is the dugite. And that dugite, I was on a 6-month retreat once. And I never saw anybody for 6 months. So my meditation was very peaceful and very deep. And I remember just washing my bowl once just around lunchtime. And I heard this huge snake come towards me. I know exactly how long it was because it went next to my hut to shade itself from the hot Australian sun. It was 2.7 meters long. And it was a dugite. And when it came, it looked at me. And I looked at it, wished it well, and carried on washing my bowl. I didn't even look at it. I was in striking distance. But do you think that snake would strike me at all? Would bite me and kill me? I was going about my business. And the snake wanted to do its business. And next time I turned around to look at that snake, it was actually, its head was pointing away from me. And its tail was just really close to me. It just wanted some shade from the hot sun next to the wall of my hut. And I just wished it well. It's like it was a friend, living in the same forest, who just looked after each other. And I've seen that so often in my life, that if it's real spirituality, you reset what people have told you, that these animals are scary, and you see them in a different way. One of the other animals which people find scary are spiders, tarantulas, and often in northeast Thailand, during the hot season, you would take your top robe off and have a bare chest as you were sometimes taking a rest in the afternoon, and the tarantulas would fall on you. the big ones, from the roof. And then these tarantulas would crawl on your bare tummy. And I liked it. We don't get much sensory stimulation as a monk in northeast Thailand. But having tarantulas crawl on you, that was, quite nice. They had very tickly feet. And they would never ever harm you. And I never wanted to abandon my peace because of animals which people said were dangerous, but weren't. And even things like COVID. I never caught COVID. I was very disappointed. Because all the other monks who got COVID got a 9-day retreat. They had to go in quarantine. Sometimes I really wonder whether they really did have COVID or whether they just wanted to have a bit of a break for 9 days. But nevertheless, I think one of the reasons, actually I'm a bit of a hypocrite because I think I should have got COVID. One of the reasons I should have got COVID, for years and years and years I've always been asking you, please be positive. But please not with COVID tests. For anyone in the biology departments here, what is the best blood type where you will live really long? No. Just innovate. Think differently. The best blood type, be positive. In other words, it doesn't really matter about the blood type, the animals or whatever. What's really important is that positive mind state. A true story that because, I'm not just a monk who stays in those jungles or forests, I do travel around a lot. And I really try to meet people. Even how I came here to Sha Tin on the MRT. MTR, okay. So I come on the MTR, and the reason I like coming on public transport, it allows people to see you. But on the MTR, that I think that people in Hong Kong are too scared of Shifu. They don't actually engage in a conversation with you. But I'd like it when sometimes, when I'm in a place like London, where I was born, and when you go on public transport there, people actually do talk to you. I recall once when I was visiting my family, my brother and his kids, you know what my brother's son and daughter call me? It's my nephew and niece, and they call me Munkle. It's a nice, yeah, monk plus uncle becomes Munkle. But I remember going to see them, and then to get to my next appointment, which was a talk at the London Buddhist Society, that my brother put me on the train, one of the underground trains, the last, the terminal where the train actually stopped somewhere in the countryside somewhere. And so I was waiting in there until actually the train would leave, about 10 minutes. And honestly, I saw all these really weird people come into the compartment where I was sitting. I saw some vampires come in. And then honestly, I'm a monk, I can't lie. I saw some vampires coming in, and then I saw some witches, and I saw some ghosts coming in. And then I realized it was Halloween. They were all going into London to go to Halloween parties. They were dressed up in all sorts of funny costumes. And so was I. And that was the first time on the London Underground I felt that I belonged. But on other times, you have opportunities to talk to people. And they're really interested. Now, who are you? Why are you have a bald head and dressed in a brown robe on the British Underground? I remember this lady came and sat next to me once, and the conversation went like this, as best I can remember it. She asked me, "Are you a Buddhist monk?" I said, yes. Are you a real Buddhist monk? I said, of course I am. You can't fake these things. And the reason why she was asking this and came to sit next to me, she was always interested. Why is a healthy young man, middle-aged man or whatever, why are you a Buddhist monk? What do you do that for? I didn't have to be a Buddhist monk. I became a Buddhist monk because I really enjoyed it. And I've mentioned this to a few people before. When I became a Buddhist monk over in Bangkok, the first 3 nights after being ordained as a Buddhist monk, I had nightmares in the middle of the night. And I'm being honest with you, that those nightmares was I dreamed I was a layman. Honest. And I opened my eyes and saw the robes folded next to my bed on the floor. I've made it. And that was some psychology which proved to me just how much I wanted to be a Buddhist monk and how much I loved that lifestyle. There was something deep inside of me which really knew that this was my path in life. And I tell each one of you, if ever you have that same type of experience, that you find out that whatever you're doing, as a lecturer, as a businesswoman, just as a mother, you find that's what you really want to do in life. Well done. That's like better than winning the lottery. That peace and happiness. And that's one of the reasons why, for any of you who are studying at this university, and if you're doing these studies because your parents want you to, but not because you love to, stop. Do something different. This is your life, and you'll find if you're not really motivated for this, you never do well. And number 2, you're not enjoying your life. And that's also, I'm just wandering all over the place here, but when you're really enjoying whatever you're doing, it's hard to get sick. You just can't do it. I've seen that many times. How many of you seen maybe an old relative and they've got some terrible cancer, they're supposed to die, but they refuse to die until you come and visit them? They're waiting for their son, their daughter, to visit from overseas. And you can do that. And it's so common. It means, that sometimes you do have abilities, to, if you really want something that badly, you're really enjoying what you're doing, then it's amazing the sorts of power you can have. This is also one of the reasons why, when I did ordain as a monk, it was in Bangkok. One of the reasons why I did become a Sifu in Thailand, not sort of in Hong Kong or in Sri Lanka, I visited all those temples in London at the time, and to me, it was the Thai monks who smiled the most. Because I wanted, if I'm going to devote my life to some religion or spirituality, I wanted to see some end products. What does it do to you? And when I saw some of the monks I knew from Thailand, they were some of the happiest people in the whole world. And so innovative. I haven't told this Ajahn Chah story on this trip so far. Ajahn Chah was my teacher. He had 4 years at school. Grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, primary school, that was it. And I was just so amazed. He was much wiser than I was. And I had big degrees from Cambridge. But also, his wisdom was being able to connect with people and understand innovative ways of dealing with problems. So the story I'm going to tell now was when this crazy woman came. The headman of the village came first of all and said, one of the women in our village is possessed by a very evil spirit. We're bringing her to see you. And you could hear the woman being dragged into the monastery from the gate, which was about a kilometre away from where Ajahn Chah was. And as and this big, strong Thai rice farmers were dragging her, and they were struggling to keep hold of her because she had such huge energy when she was so crazy. And as soon as Ajahn Chah saw her from a distance, I was wondering, what's he going to do? And what Ajahn Chah said was he wanted a lot of boiling water. So he told some of the monks, get some more water, build a fire, boil it. Are there anybody studying psychiatry who are in front of me right now? Anyone studying psychology even? This is real psychiatry, real psychology. You got someone, going mad, crazy. He wanted boiling water. And he wanted somebody else to dig a big hole. And as they dragged her closer, it was the Thai lady. They're usually so devoted to their religion. But she was swearing and cursing and using sorts of words you never say in a monastery. And she was literally frothing at her mouth. And old Ajahn Chah would say, dig a deeper hole, more boiling water. You know what he was doing? I hadn't got a clue what he was up to. That's why it was so interesting being around such a monk. He was totally innovative, unpredictable. And then what he said next, he said, this woman has got a very, very dangerous spirit inside of her. Really dangerous. And the only way we can deal with this is put her in the hole, pour boiling water all over her, and then bury her. Do you do that practice in psychiatric hospitals here in Hong Kong? You're a senior lecturer. You can refer students there. But the point is, we wouldn't think you could do that. But for a Sifu in Thailand, certainly this lady thought he might. And if you thought that was a possibility, you'd be thrown in a hole by this very highly respected monk and have boiling water poured all over you and then buried, what would you do? There's something which we call self-preservation. And this woman, she really thought Ajahn Chah might do that. So she got her act together very quickly. Within 2 or 3 minutes, from swearing and shouting and screaming and being very difficult to hold down, in a few minutes, she was sitting there so peacefully, exhausted but calm. And Ajahn Chah, he gave her a blessing and then sent her home. That's how he dealt with madness. I wouldn't suggest that you try that on somebody. It was a one-off and it was so innovative. It's what we call like emotional intelligence. Having a problem he's never been trained for in his life and dealing with it in such an incredible, wonderful way. So sometimes you see things like that and it just shows you what wisdom truly is. Don't say what would happen if it had gone wrong. It never did go wrong for some reason. On another time, have you ever seen people or Sifus sprinkling people with holy water? Ajahn Chah usually doesn't do that. But one day when I was there, that this major general in the Thai army came to see Ajahn Chah. And he said, I need a blessing. And he came with a few majors and colonels and other people in his entourage. And as you might know, in Thailand, the army was very, very powerful. And he said, I want a blessing from you, Ajahn Chah, some holy water. And Ajahn Chah says, I don't do that. He said, no, you can, said the general. So you know what Ajahn Chah did? He said, well, come here. And he bent in front of Ajahn Chah. He said, put your head down. And he spat on the head of the general. If that wasn't bad enough, he got his hand and rubbed it in. And poor old, I thought Ajahn Chah's gone too far this time. You get dragged away, never see him again. But this general loved every moment of it. He said, this is special. This is the only person I've ever done this to. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And so that type of innovation was what I was very interested in. Because this is doing things in a way which you've never seen before, which were highly effective. And how do you do that? Now, how can you let go of everything you've learnt in the past, what you should do, and trust your intuition, your insight, and do it a different way, and break new ground? And I think that's really what universities should all be about. You know, pushing the envelope sometimes, being more innovative. How can, you do your life better? We have, I say this because there's many young people here. Have you found a partner in life yet? Those of you who have got a partner, are you happy with them? One of the things which you do as a monk, you do all sorts of interesting stuff. One of the things I do is give marriage counselling. I don't know why. I've never been married. What would I know? But you do learn a lot by talking with people and being observant. Many times, people who I have done marriage services for are still happily married. And they say because some of the things which I've taught them. One of the things I taught them, this is traditional Asian marriages in Thailand or Sri Lanka or Malaysia. I said to them that when you're single, you're just an individual with two legs. You can go wherever you want. When you're married, you're like an elephant. One body but four legs. You have to go the same direction. And then I said, in Thailand and Sri Lanka, I know those cultures very well. In Thailand, Sri Lanka and Malaysia, the front legs have to be the man and the back legs have to be the woman. And people start losing faith in Ajahn Brahm. But then I say, I've noticed, if the front legs are the man, the back legs are the woman, don't worry, because in Thailand and Sri Lanka, the elephants always walk backwards. That's true. But to make it even better, I always honour marriages. And this is a beautiful point of how we can learn to live together in peace and harmony. During that marriage, after the... it's okay, you're not married yet. I'm scaring you. This poor little baby. After the exchange of the rings, I don't call them rings usually, I call them handcuffs. You okay? Okay, no, take a photograph. I thought there was some problem. Once you have exchanged the handcuffs in a marriage, the ring exchange, no one laughed at that, maybe I'm going too far. Then what happens is that I give some advice. And I usually start by looking at the bride, straight in the eyes, and I say, of course you mustn't think of yourself in a marriage. And I look at the guy. Now you're married, you mustn't think of yourself either. He agrees as well. But usually, if it's an Australian guy, I don't know about French guys, but they usually pause a while and think about it, but they do say yes in the end. And then, when looking at the guy, I said, and once you're married, from this moment on, you must never think of her, your wife. And then looking at the wife, She looks confused by now. Now you're a married woman, you must never think of your husband. Good, you haven't heard this before. I can see that on your faces. You're thinking, what is Ajahn Brahm up to now? What's the punchline? This is not a joke, this is really important. Because once you're married, you must never think of yourself, nor must you think of your partner. You must only think of us. It's the third option. It's not about me. It's not about your partner. It's about us. And if you get into any trouble, whose problem is it? Our problem. Never his problem. Never her problem. Never my problem. Our problem. See, that gives you a different way of looking at being married. And it really, really, really works. People think I'm a crazy monk when I first say that, but then they actually see it. It's actually a new way of looking at things, and it works, and it's good, it's great. Now, it's not just with monks and nuns. Today we've got another Sifu here, Mahayana monk, and I'm a Theravada monk, a Hinayana monk. So, what am I doing? The Hinayana Theravada monks are supposed to be in it for their own enlightenment. Is that right? No, it's not. You are in it for other people's enlightenment, not your enlightenment. Is that right? No. Both are wrong. It's not that I'm the most important or other people are the most important. We are the most important. We don't make an individual entity out of it. It's about us. What is the most important country? France? China? Australia? Who is the most important? We are. Often when you've been flying over many, many continents, I try and get a window seat, and if it's a very clear day, you can look out the window seat, and I've never seen lines from the air which separate the border of this and that. We often really hope, I hope, that people will visit each other's countries, would marry one another, and go and work in a third country, so we can all get really, really, really mixed up. And even our different religions, we can get all lovely and mixed up. I mentioned this earlier. I mentioned this in the middle a few moments ago when I started, that about, because I'm well known and I can tell stories with jokes. I haven't told enough jokes, have I? Begin the story. So I know this is one joke. I told a couple of you, but I haven't told it here, about, many of you are mothers. Do you find it hard to get your kid up in the morning to go to school? Do you remember just going to school you don't want to when you were a student? Anyway, there was this mother over in Australia, and she had a kid who just did not want to get up in the morning to go to school. Come on, son, get up. You've got to go to school. I don't want to go to school, Mummy. But you have to. Why? The other children don't like me. The teachers don't like me. I hate school. Why should I go? And Mummy said, you have to go, son. Give me one good reason why I should go. Because, son, you are the principal. If I was the principal of a school, I wouldn't go. Too much hard work. Anyway, that was the complimentary joke. Even though I was a school teacher for 1 year, that's where I lost all my hair. No, that's an exaggeration. But one thing which, you always, education is really important. It doesn't really matter who you are, to be able to help, to be able to serve. And I like it when people do things differently. So I remember just one of the things that I did once I became a monk and moved to Australia was we used to teach in prisons. The first prison I went to, I was surprised how many of those people in jail turned up to my talk on meditation. I never thought that people in jail were so spiritual. But then after 10 minutes, this one fellow, really big, lots of scars on him, one of the prisoners there, put up his hand and said, "Can I ask a question?" When anybody that dangerous looking wants to ask a question, you will say, yes sir, what do you want to ask? You know the question he asked? This is not made up. He said, "Is it true that through meditation you can learn how to fly over walls?" That actually happened. And I said, well, it'll take you many years, and only special people can do that. And the next time I visited that jail, only 3 prisoners turned up to come to my class. But interesting, that guy became a really good friend over so many years. Such a good friend. I remember just going into a high security jail where he was one of the inmates. And there's many people in that jail would get assaulted, get raped, men and women. And so the prison authorities were really concerned. And so they'd installed an alarm system. And at the gate there, the prison officers told me, "You see those little things which we've installed on the ceiling? Those aren't fire alarms. They're not sprinkler systems. This is our new security." And they gave me a pen, like a biro pen. And they said, "If anyone assaults you, point that pen at one of those things on the ceiling, press the button, and the alarm will come off and we'll come and save you." He said, "Put it in your pocket." Can you see a pocket on my robe? And that's what I told the pit, "Look, I haven't got a pocket. I just hold it." So I went into my meditation class holding this pen. And this guy, who I first met, who wanted to learn how to levitate, he looked at me and said, "Oh, you got one of those security pens as well, have you?" He leaned forward and said, "Ajahn Brahm, do you think that you can point that at one of those sensors before I rape you?" And I said, "No, you're probably way too fast." And he said, "Yes, I am. I've got nothing to lose. Got a long sentence. A bit of fun for me." But you know what he said next? He saw I wasn't afraid. He smiled and said, "But there's a lot of people in this room who care about you. If anybody in the back tried anything like that, we would protect you. You got nothing to fear." And that was really true. My alarm system, my protection, was all the kindness which I'd given to those prisoners over so many years. It works. I told you already my insurance policy. I think I told you, coming to Hong Kong, I've got no health insurance. It's true, I haven't got any health insurance. You know why? I know so many doctors working in Hong Kong. If I broke a leg, there'd be a fight from these senior doctors. "I will look after him." "No, I will look after him." "No, it's my turn. You got him last time." You know that is actually true. It's an opportunity, to care for a Sifu. And people love to do that. And so that's one of the reasons that my insurance system is all the kindness which I've done over the years and all the wonderful things which people would love to do for me in return. But anyway, I was going to say what I was talking about earlier, that one of the people I got to know, because of the work which I did with cancer, teaching cancer patients how to meditate and overcome that cancer. I've seen it work too many times to doubt it. And anyhow, that one of these he was an Anglican chaplain, and he said, "Why don't you come to our school to give a talk at the morning assembly. And this was one of the top Christian schools in Perth. Christchurch Grammar School it was called. And I said, yes, I'll come. And so he was a mate of mine, a friend. And so I turned up in the morning, and I had to wait outside the big hall with the chaplain and the principal. And the principal said he was a very devout Christian and well known. He was the headmaster of this really fancy school. So he said, we have to wait outside until the children settle down. And when they do settle down, we'll go in together, the three of us. And there's a small statue of Jesus in a Christian school. So the chaplain and I, said the headmaster, will do a small bow to Jesus. We're Christians. But you're a Buddhist monk, you don't have to bow to Jesus. And I turned around to the principal and said to him, I demand my right to bow to your statue of Jesus. And the principal again thought, who are we inviting to talk to our kids? This crazy guy, this crazy monk. But the chaplain knew me very well, said, oh, he always is like this. Let him bow to Jesus if he wants to. And so I did that as I went in. And I started my talk to these Christian kids. The reason I do that is because I always see something in that statue I can respect. Not all of it. I'm a Buddhist. I can always see some of the good qualities, which that person had done. And I said, that's exactly what I do when I do my 3 bows to a Buddha. I see the good things, the beautiful things, inspiring things, which a Buddha signifies for me. And I started off, as I mentioned earlier, virtue, trustworthiness. Where you don't steal, you don't lie, you don't alcohol or drugs, and you're honest with one another. You really are treating each other as good human beings. I said, I don't care whether you're an atheist, a Christian or a Muslim or whatever. I can see goodness in all human beings, as I see even in prisoners in jail. And that's what I'm going to bow to, the goodness in humanity, the virtue. And I find it very easy to bow to that. I've lived a virtuous life for such a long time. It creates a lot of happiness and safety. And the next thing which I'm going to bow to is peace. Many spiritualities, that's what it should be all about. Learning how to be peaceful. And that peace is one of the most amazing powers you can ever experience. Really still. When I said that I did a 6-month personal meditation retreat, this was over in Perth, in the forest. It is true. I never saw a human being for 6 months. I never spoke to anybody for 6 months. I had no one to speak to. It was a beautiful experience. The mind got so peaceful and so still. You did speak to the animals, like the dugite, or this family of eagles would always be flying. There's 2 big eagles and a small one, their baby. They're teaching it how to fly every afternoon. And you were sensitive enough to be able to pick up on the time they were flying and really enjoy just watching them. So peace and stillness. Any of you doing exams? The reason I did well in my university, I knew how to be still before an exam. So all the fear disappeared. And my mind was clear, so I could do well. And the last thing is the kindness. That's the third thing which I bow to. Compassion. I'm not quite sure, in your life, what's the most compassionate thing you've seen or experienced? Remember one of those things, which I always remember, just makes me just watery-eyed. There was a Laotian refugee who came over to Perth while all her family was sent to USA. It's because they were all sent to I think Washington State, which has the postcode WA. She was sent to the Australian, West Australia, which has the same postcode. Just a clerical error. But she was separated from her whole family. Poor, had no way to get and see her, the rest of her family. Remember, because she was a devout Buddhist, she came to see me one afternoon because she got, I think it was a telegram in those days, from her family. Her mother was dying. Now I think you all know what it's like under COVID when you have a dear relation who's about to pass away and you can't go and see them. And I know from the Laotian culture that is intensified. It's, though she was so sad and so frustrated and so desperate, she was weeping. And as a monk, as you all know, that I don't have any personal funds of money. If I did, I'd have given them to her, but I couldn't do that. But then, just behind, there was another Thai girl who, she used to be a nurse, but she'd injured her back, was fighting a court case to get, the insurance payout for her injury. She couldn't work as a nurse. And I knew just how poor she was. And I saw her get out the old checkbooks. This was quite a few years ago. And she didn't write out a check. She just signed it, a blank check. And he gave it to this Laotian lady. Go and see your mother. Even though she hardly had any money in her account at all. She knew what it was like. Understood the importance of seeing her mother before she passes away. And everybody was crying. That type of compassion, don't care how much it costs, go and do it. It's important. And because of that, I would always remember that. Just how people are willing to sacrifice everything for somebody else they care about. And that's what kindness is all about. If ever you do see a wonderful act of kindness, remember it. It brings up so much joy and happiness and meaning in your life. That's why I bow to that, to kindness, compassion, peace and virtue. And the result of that, the principal was really impressed. 2 weeks later he organized a big visit of all the students to come and visit Bodhinyana Monastery. He arrived first. And with me, this principal of this big Christian school, we walked inside our main hall in Bodhinyana Monastery, and together we bowed 3 times to the Buddha. At least I bowed to virtue, peace and compassion, and that's what the Christian principle bowed to as well. We found out just how sensitive human beings can trust each other, and we can do these 3 bows in a way which really has meaning. So that's what we did. Okay, you're very quiet now. I'm not quite sure if that you've fallen asleep, but I do know that many people actually, they email me and said, thank you Ajahn Brahm, because they listen to my talks on YouTube before they go to sleep at night. And I still don't know whether that's a compliment or a criticism, but anyhow. So thank you for listening to the main part of the talk. How you do that, you try and find silence. It's so easy to be silent, say where I live, because Australia is a huge continent. You only have to go a little ways outside the city. You can find some really peaceful places. But many times, whenever I was meditating in Thailand, it was much noisier. And sometimes we'd complain to Ajahn Chah, can you please ask the villagers to be more quiet? And his answer was brilliant. He said, it's not the noise disturbs you, it's you who disturb the noise. And that was, I thought he was crazy at first. But then I realized, the noise is outside. You can hear it, but you don't need to listen to it. Listen to it means, what are they saying? Why did they do that? Why are they on their mobile phones? The noise in your head, the reaction is always much louder than the actual cause of that noise. Somebody talking. Even when I teach retreats, sometimes in our retreat center, which is set up for meditation, people ask me, can you not ask people to close the door quietly? And my answer is, look, any noise they make from closing the door, bang, it's gone in a second. But when it echoes in your head, why did they close the door that noisily? I'm going to tell Ajahn Brahm, I'm going to get their name, we're going to ban them, we'll put all the noisy door closers in the same cottage so they don't have to be next to me. We have to do something about this. Maybe we can ban them until they can learn how to... That noise has gone on for already 1 or 2 minutes. And that's what he meant. It's not the noise disturbs you, it's you who disturb the noise. And if you don't give it importance, then after a while it's noise in the background, and it doesn't disturb you. Many times I've tried that out to make sure that what I teach others I practice and actually works. And one day there was a demonstration for the Burmese Buddhist community in the middle of Perth. They wanted me to go and sit for a couple of hours on the pavement and in the middle of Perth on a busy day. Of course I did that because I wanted to test out, can you get some nice deep meditation in the middle of the city when there's lots of sound of cars? It was better than I expected because we were opposite this video game store at the time, Time Zone I think it was called. And I was blaring out music on the opposite side of the street, really loud. And cars and people. And it wasn't hard at all. You learn how to pay no attention to the noise and make sure it doesn't echo in your brain. And then it was soon very peaceful, even though there was lots of noise. Another time I remember being in Bangkok airport, just in the place where people came out and met their friends. Nice to see you again, how are you? There's so much noise there. I had to wait for somebody else to come. So I just sat down on the seat and meditated for an hour. Even though there was lots of noise, it never disturbed you. And soon the noise disappeared. It was like I was in a bubble, my own bubble, and everything else I never paid attention to. In a university, you can never make it peaceful. What you can do, put a bubble around you. Inside that bubble, you don't need to sort of pay attention to anything outside. Many years ago, I was in Oslo University giving a talk, and the question was, this young lady said, I have an important decision to make, and I'm not quite sure what that decision should be. Give me some advice. And sometimes I'd say this, and I really shouldn't. I really pay my apologies to this lady. I said, let's make it more concrete. For example, suppose it was, should I accept the marriage proposal of the guy sitting next to me? She went red in the face. Oh my goodness. I'd read her mind. And so then I got serious. I said, look, it was a really important decision. Should I accept the marriage proposal? And I said, how you solve that? Take out a coin, toss it up. Heads I marry him, tails I don't. And once you've tossed up that coin, then notice your reaction. Heads I marry him. And do you think, let's try 2 out of 3. That will mean you don't want to marry him. If it comes up heads, yes. That shows you do want to. That's how to understand your intuition, your emotional wisdom. But it's more than that. You have an important decision to make. You try your best to use your wisdom and your emotions, your intuition. But then, it doesn't matter what decision you make. It doesn't matter what guy you marry. They're all the same. Because guys, well, what is important is once you've made that decision, then what do you do? After you've made the decision, make it the right decision. But not thinking backwards and thinking, I shouldn't have done that, I should have done something else. You made the decision, go with it and put your energy into making that decision work. Too often people make a decision, by the time they made a decision, they're exhausted. And they think, I made the decision, I don't have to do anything anymore. Make it the right decision. You find a guy and you marry them, make it a beautiful relationship. You can. Change your job or keep the job you got now. Make the decision work. By saving so much of the energy you put into decision making to after the decision has been made. That's how to deal with parents, especially in Chinese culture. But if you can find a roundabout way of doing things, I don't know your relationship with your father, or if you have like a sifu who your mother respects, and you get that sifu to talk with your mother. Don't do it yourself. Because that mother-daughter relationship is, that you're supposed to do what your mother wants. She is wiser. She gave birth to you. She gave you life and brought you up. Even in the time of the Buddha, the wisest monk after the Buddha was Venerable Sariputta. He could never teach his mother anything about Buddhism. And when he went to see her, he was in his 80s. And then his mother was still alive. And she scolded him. This was Sariputta. When are you going to get a job? Why do you come here with your bald-headed friends and expect me to feed them all? And I kind of understand that because I could never teach my mother. Other monks could. But that mother-son relationship meant you can't do it. Even a similar situation with mothers find it very hard to tell their sons and daughters what to do, especially in the West. So I had this Malaysian Chinese family having a really hard time with their son. They were getting letters from the university saying he's not completing his assignments. His scores in the tests are very low. He's in danger of getting kicked out of university. Mother and father told him, you've got to work harder, university is important. But the son would not listen to the parents. Fortunately, the father was very smart. He waited up one day, or one evening, very late, when his son came back home from the nightclub with his girlfriend. 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. He invited the girlfriend to come into the house, knowing that the son would have to follow. He said, I don't know how long you've been going out together, but I think this may be like a serious relationship. He's just speaking to the girlfriend. I don't know if my son's told you, but he's getting such low grades at university, he might even get kicked out. Has he told you that? I said, no, I've never heard that from my boyfriend. I'm sure how the relationship goes, I'm sure you never want to go out with someone who's kicked out of university, or even like marry them. I said, no. He said, oh, I just thought I'd let you know that. Have a good night. And then he went to bed, left the two of them. And from that day, the girlfriend was really on the case of that poor boy. The boy would not listen to his mother or father. My goodness, he would listen to the girlfriend. So find out if there's a weakness in your mother, someone she's scared of, would always listen to. And if you can find that person, then you have full control.
Thank you, Ajahn. And this reminds me of one question that I asked Ajahn some years ago. I asked Ajahn, sometimes I get very angry or upset by people or by things. How many times should I forgive them?
Yeah. How many times can you forgive people who just really are cruel and irresponsible and really hurt you? How many times should you forgive them? And the answer is, always one more time. How you go deeper in meditation, and it's true, this is good enough, so you don't do any wanting. This is good enough creates contentment. And it's a contentment which creates a stillness where you go deeper and deeper and deeper. And some of you have seen me do this before. This water is like my mind. My job is to keep this water perfectly still. Is it still yet? I'm not even paying attention, am I? Now I'm paying attention. Has it stopped moving yet? I'm not concentrating. Now I'll really concentrate. That's how many people meditate. And that's why you get frustrated and give up. It's a very easy way to meditate, and it's so easy and fun. You put it down and let it go. It's still moving, but less and less and less. And over the time, it becomes perfectly still. And what happens when it gets still? Here you won't be able to be still enough to notice it. When things don't move, they disappear from your brain. The sound of the aircon, if you don't pay attention to it, it disappears. Your breathing, just the feeling of your butt on the cushion where you're sitting. After a while it disappears. And that's one of the fantastic things about meditation, to see your senses turn off. I went to this Zen retreat when I was a lay person. I didn't know what I was supposed to do, which was really helpful. They just said, keep your eyes open and just watch a whitewashed wall for 45 minutes. At least I knew how to keep my mind still. So I was just watching this wall, and after about 20 minutes, the wall vanished. It was just not there anymore. And that was weird, but I was interested in weird stuff. It's very easy to explain. It was a whitewashed wall, and I was watching it continuously. Nothing changed, and so the sense of sight turned off. Taste. Can you taste your saliva right now? In a 1 or 2, or even less than a minute, you won't be able to taste anything in your mouth. The sense of taste will turn off. If you sit perfectly still, after a while your body will disappear. You'll not be able to experience it. And that is beautiful in meditation. That sometimes in deep meditation people can tap you on the shoulder, you won't feel it. They can lift you up and move you because they need to clean up the stage. You won't feel it. You'll be perfectly aware, but inside. That's what happens with stillness. Things disappear. It's like, imagine you're at a business, you've got 6 phones on your desk, and then 5 of those phones disappear. You've only got 1 to look after, and that is your mind phone. The other 5 senses vanish. And then when you experience what the mind can do, it's huge. That's what we do in deep meditation. Fantastic. 5 senses vanish, 6th sense, the mind, gets very beautiful and very bright. See how still that is? No effort. I don't do it. It's going back to nature. Ajahn used to describe the leaves on the trees or on the bushes. They only move because of the wind. If the wind stops, the leaves are still moving, but less and less and less, until the leaves become perfectly still. That's their nature. And the old saying, shared by all our Buddhist traditions, the best way to see a moon is in a reflection of a still mountain lake. When the lake is so still, no waves on it, and so it doesn't distort the reflection. It becomes like a glass mirror. the best way to see truth, meaning in life, to understand love, is actually to be so still the meaning doesn't get distorted. It's easy, honestly, because what you learn in the spiritual life, you use it in your career as well. Especially if it is in, I'm not quite, you did actually tell me earlier, I think, what you're doing in university, but it doesn't really matter. If you're in business, if you're in study, or if you are in research, when you are very still and peaceful, you get more insights. Your brain is much better used. And I did this many years ago. You know, one of the gigs which I did years ago was give the keynote speech at the 2019 World Computer Conference in South Korea, in Daejeon. And if you look at my computer skills, they're just so weak. And I gave this keynote address at this big conference. And straight away people said, "What are you doing here?" But afterwards they liked what I said so much they gave me this big donation for our monastery in Perth. And they gave me business class tickets and a really nice hotel and invitations to come back again. Why? And the reason was, one of the little tricks I taught them, which is now in Harvard Business School. How heavy is this cup of water? Don't give me a figure in grams or pounds or ounces or whatever. The longer I hold it, the heavier it feels. After 2 or 3 minutes, I'll start to ache. After about 10 minutes, I'll be in agony. I'm very stupid. What should I do when this gets uncomfortable to hold? Put it down. When you put it down, you are getting ready, reset, re-energize my arm. And when I pick it up again, it actually feels lighter. That's why people get stressed. They get stressed out because when your work gets too heavy, you don't know how to put it down and rest. If you just rest for half an hour in the middle of the day, doesn't matter what you're doing, it's one of the reasons why that over here in this university, the toilets, what do we call the toilets here? Rest rooms. So go inside a toilet if you get stressed out. You don't need to do anything, just sit there. And if your boss says, "Where are you?" you say, "Well, I'll be constipated." You're not lying, that's true. Constipated in here. And once you give like half an hour to resting, you make that up afterwards with greater clarity, better ideas. You're more efficient. How many of you have been trying to write some sort of report or essay for somebody, and just the words just don't come out? You get no ideas, no innovation. It takes almost forever for you to write. Some of the books which I've written, that first book I wrote, Opening the Door of Your Heart, I did half of that book just written out by hand. I didn't have a computer where I was. I wrote it just 1 hour a day. For about, I think, 15 days. Didn't need any editing, because I was meditating at the time. Came out, flowed out. I never tried. I just let it come. And this is no exaggeration. I do have the original manuscript, in my hut. I've auctioned it off to someone to raise money for something, but they passed away, so I've got it back again now. But I don't want to auction it. It just should be in some museum or something. Simply because it's just so easy to write. 1 hour a day for 2 weeks, and that was half the book. And it is actually a bestseller, especially in Germany. Any Germans here? Oh yeah. The Spiegel bestseller list for years. They call it in in German, the Kuh de Weinte, the cow that cried. Have you seen that before? You have, yeah, good. And that's how easy it was to write. And it's easy to find a publisher too. I just managed to get a disc with it all typed up by a friend, and then how are you going to get a publisher? Then I went to give a talk in Melbourne University. At the end of the talk, somebody came up to me and said, "That was a really good talk. I work in the publishing industry. If ever you got something to publish, please let us know." And I reached inside my bag, "Here you go." I didn't need to even send it to anybody. They just came and collected it. How did you define happiness? But first of all, I would say I was offered a job as a stand-up comedian once. Honestly, I'd given a talk in the Buddhist Society of Victoria. One of the people who was listening was on TV as a comedian. And he said, "You've got very good timing, original material, and just the fact that you're a monk with a bald head will just give you that edge." And I considered it for a few moments, but thought, no, I'll stick with my day job as a monk. But anyway, so what is actually happiness? And happiness is being relaxed, being at peace with your body, being at peace with your mind, and being at peace with everybody in front of you. That's a nice definition. When you consider some of the happiest moments of your life so far, what were they? Many of you have been alive many years, you've known suffering, you've known happiness. The best happinesses are born of contentment. So happy to be here. I don't want anything else in the whole world. If someone came and said, "I can improve this for you, what would you like?" And if you're really happy, you say, "Nothing. This is as good as I want it to be. I don't want anything." And that is a good sign of what happiness is. It's not boring. At last you've reached the destination. You can sit down and enjoy it. You deserve it. Never think, "Oh, I'm happy, what about everybody else?" I would be very happy if you're happy. And sometimes your happiness is felt by others. Each one of you, when you go home tonight, when you walk through this university or whatever tomorrow, whatever happiness you've gained this evening will automatically be shared with the others. Never think that happiness is just personal. It's shared. Okay, I think one of the reasons why you said that was in the human life we have a lot of happiness, but a lot of difficulties too. In the heavenly realms you have more happiness and less suffering. You don't have as much motivation to actually understand about life. So in the human realm, have you got enough happiness? It's not perfect, is it? Sometimes you get a degree, and then after a while you forgot everything in that degree. It just all moves on too fast. Sometimes you find a nice partner to share your life with, and then he gets old and fat. She gets ugly. Sometimes you really try your best, and then it's not really received, it's not really understood. And so there's a lot of suffering in this world because people are far too critical. And I'm going to get into dangerous ground here, but I have known many politicians. And it's a sort of job I would never like to do because some of those politicians have really been trying hard to do something for their country or for their people, and they get so much criticism back. Would you like to, I don't know how many of you run a university or just run a company. Running a country? It's an impossible task. It's one of the reasons why we've known personally some politicians. And when I've got to know them, you feel a lot of sadness for them. So hard job to do. So that's one of the reasons why in this human realm we can learn so much by our failures. In the heavenly realm, it's just too much success. That's why that 70% rule, which Dell been reminding me of. Never marry a perfect partner. It will drive you crazy. 70%. If there's 70%, you know how to score things and people. 70%, it means where there's difficulties, that's where your love and kindness and forgiveness and your learning comes in. It's not a transition.
Okay.
As a physicist, the reason why I got involved in theoretical physics was because it was teaching about this world. You learn so many amazing things in quantum physics and astrophysics. And a lot of time you're sitting there in the lecture theatre and what the lecturer was saying, wow, that's amazing when you get your head around it, what it's actually saying. And little things, that such as, how big is this universe? Where did it come from? Because a really fundamental law of science, you cannot create mass energy, nor can you destroy it. The sum total of mass energy in the universe is always constant. So where did it come from? But then there's something called negative energy. I don't mean like negative emotions. I mean any massive object in a gravitational field has a negative energy component. So everything has negative energy as well as a positive energy. I'm talking about stuff and fields. And so I remember just asking the professor of physics at our local university in Perth, what would happen if you sum total all the energy in the current known universe together with the negative energy component? What would happen if it all comes to zero? In other words, if everything in this universe all congregated in one spot, everything would all cancel each other out and nothing left. I remember this professor of physics, who was really up to date, he turned around to me, this lecture we were doing together, wow, you know so much, omega equals 1. It's the truth. If everything all came together, it wouldn't explode. It would just balance. And that's a nice part of science. And that's theoretical physics. It's very hard to argue with that. And what would happen if all of your thoughts and history, past karma, present, future karma, all come together? You'd vanish, disappear, poof, and gone. There's something beautiful in that. Or just creation. I don't want to be anti-Krishna, anti any religion, but it never made sense to me about where stuff came from. And the answer is this planet Earth. How big is planet Earth? It's actually got a limited area, surface area. That's why we're always trying to find suitable places to build houses for people or whatever. But in the old days, people thought the Earth was flat. It kind of looks flat, but we now know it's got no edges to it, Earth, but it's got a limited size. And then you learned from astrophysics, this universe has got no edges. I often thought, what if you go to the end of the universe? The limit. Is there like a barbed wire fence there? Saying this is the end of the universe, no one's allowed to go beyond. And of course, it can't be like that, it's not like that. This universe is curved. If you go from Hong Kong University in a straight line fast enough forever, you know where you'll end up? Back in Hong Kong University.
This is Chinese you, Ajahn.
Oh, sorry. I'll allow a little bit of deformity. But that was answering how there can be a limited size, a limited volume for this universe, but no boundaries, no beginnings or ends. So the next stage is time. We always think of time as flat, with a beginning or an end. That's not beautiful. That creates so many problems. What if time wasn't flat? If time was curved as well? Limited duration, but no beginnings and no ends. Just like space, just like the earth. All it's doing is changing the way we perceive things, for it to become much more accurate to truth. That's what I got from science. Then you expand that to Buddhism and it's brilliant stuff. It means you're not fixed in one way of looking at things. Yes, whenever you experience or see social injustice, getting angry does not help. It actually spreads the disease of social injustice. When you are quiet and make peace, you can find so many innovative solutions. An example of that, a very simple example. When I was a young boy, there were signs up by the River Thames in London. If anybody fell into that river, please go to hospital immediately and get your lungs pumped out, because the water in the River Thames was toxic. There were so many factories and stuff on the river, and they were polluting it so badly. It was a danger, to fall in or to swim or anything. And then wondered, how can you regulate, big companies to stop polluting the water? They made a very innovative law. Any company could take water from the River Thames, but the inlet pipe had to be downstream of the outlet pipe. So whatever they sucked up from the River Thames was what they just put in, just a few meters above. And that law cleaned up the River Thames, and there's now fish in that river, and it's reasonably safe now. So you can't sort of find solutions like that through anger. Anger means you don't see clearly, and there are some amazing options which you can find, which don't involve anger. Anger clouds the mind and stops innovation. So see if you can be peaceful and quiet, and then much better solutions will come. And they will surprise others, but they'll be workable. That makes sense? Justice and kindness. Sometimes, I remember reading this book by, what was his name again? Anyway, the book was titled Erewhon, like nowhere spelled backwards. And in that place, that if anybody did a crime, that they were actually basically forgiven. It was looked upon as being a disease. And when anybody got sick, then they were punished. I remember just one of the scenes there was a young guy who had a cold. And he was up before the judge. He said, you've been convicted of having a cold, and that's really bad. You're infecting other people. This is not the first time you've been in front of me. You've had a cold many, many times, and that's really a bad social crime, so I'm going to send you to jail for 6 months for having a cold. And there was a logical argument for that. And when somebody was a thief, they said, oh, no, that's, you got kleptomania or something. That's a social disease, like a psychological disease. So they went to see a psychiatrist rather than go to jail. And just the way they changed it around, sickness is your responsibility. Why are you sick? You haven't been exercising enough. You've been eating the wrong food. Bad girl. We'll send you to jail for a few years. But when it becomes to what we take to be crime these days, looked upon as being a psychological disease. There's some truth to that, but of course both are really wrong. You know, when people do stupid things which hurt other people, can't we give them forgiveness? What would it be like if we forgave rather than just trying to get angry and get our own back? If you forgive, have a look at Nelson Mandela's Truth and Reconciliation Commission. People did terrible crimes. And one of the episodes there, which I will never forget, when this white South African secret police officer was describing how he'd murdered, after torturing him, this black South African ANC activist in front of the man's widow. This woman had just seen secret police invading her apartment and taking her husband away. Never saw him again. And the perpetrator was confessing what he'd done. As you all know, in that Truth and Reconciliation Commission, anybody who's told the truth had amnesty. That was the only way they could find out what had really happened. And the guy apparently who was confessing what he'd done was shaking. It was traumatic for him to admit what he'd done. And after he'd finished his testimony, the widow jumped over the barrier, avoided two security guards, and went straight for this guy who'd extrajudicially murdered the man she committed to in his life. Her husband, father of her children, lover. This white South African police officer had murdered him. She avoided all those people, went straight for this guy, gave him this huge hug, and said, "I forgive you. I forgive you." And everybody in that courtroom just burst out weeping. And you can actually do that? Forgive somebody who'd murdered the love of your life, extrajudicially, and covered it up. When I read that, that's where you get the message. How many times forgive? Always one more time. And that will get rid of a lot of that's antisocial behavior. If somebody is saying, a kid is acting on drugs, can't we have prisons, which are not really prisons, but just we have to look after you for a while? It's a disease, treat it like an illness, not as somehow you need to be punished. That's one of the things, I just don't believe in punishment. No matter how bad that crime was and how much hurt it gave. I remember giving this talk after 9/11, and of course somebody, this was over in Malaysia, someone came up and said, "Ajahn Brahm, what would you have done if you were the President of the United States after 9/11? So I'd gone on TV as soon as I possibly could and said, "I forgive you all. Any Islamic terrorists, anybody involved in this, there's been enough death, enough tears, people losing their lives, other people losing their lives. The United States government forgives you and will not seek any revenge." And I imagine afterwards, demonstrators going along the streets of the Middle East, not with pictures of, what's his name? Pictures of George Bush. Yeah, sorry? Yeah, pictures of George Bush. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu to George Bush for being a leader and finding innovative solutions, not based on fear, but based on touching the hearts of everybody. It's only a pedantic difference. Reincarnation is sometimes you think that you get reborn into the next life, rather than it being a process, one thing leading to another, leading to another, leading to another. The good example is you eat a mango, you plant the seed in the ground, which is left over, and that seed germinates, a little green shoot comes up, forces its way through the earth, comes above the earth like a little piece of grass, then it grows and grows and becomes a sapling, and the sapling grows and becomes like a little tree, like a bush, and then it grows even more and becomes a tree, and then the tree makes branches, and the branches, the end of the branches has leaves, and some of those leaves have a little bulb in the end. You know, the first bit of mango is coming, then it gets pollinated, and then the little swelling grows and grows and grows, and after a while it becomes ripe, becomes a mango, and you eat it. What's the connection between the first mango and the second mango? It's a process, a cause and effect process. And there's probably not even any element in the second mango which was there in the first mango. It has a connection, but it's not identical. So that's like you, whoever you were in a past life. Not the same, but not different. It's a connection there. That's what we call rebirth or continuation, rather than you as the same human being coming to the next life. And if anybody doesn't believe in rebirth or reincarnation, you know the answer. If you don't believe in reincarnation in this life, you will in the next. Grounding your body. Yeah, all you do is before you start meditating, and if you're going to think and have a deep meditation, tell yourself, when I come out, I will remember I have to do this and I have to do that. And you ground yourself back in the world. Am I grounded in the world? I can work and help and do. Have a shower, brush my teeth. So you do get grounded, but in a beautiful way. Remember, kindness to yourself is as important as kindness to others. And what to do is say that to yourself before you start meditating. And when you come out afterwards, it's so easy to do. That's New World again, people working together, meeting one another. Please travel around a lot if you possibly can, without creating too much damage to the climate. And it's one of the, when I was a kid, poor home, so I went to this school where there were so many people of different nationalities. There was lots of migrants in that school. Polish, and from Sri Lanka, and from many other countries, trying to remember now, from Jamaica. And honestly, I didn't care, where they were from. As long as they played good football, they were in my team. And there's a wonderful upbringing there when as a kid, you learn how to value everybody, no matter who they were, where they were from. And not just human beings from different races, but gays, lesbians, transgenders, the whole gamut of things. To respect everybody. And people who have any deformities. Please, they deserve a life. Please have enough kindness. Let everybody, come in. If they can do the job, then fine, they can do it. And also that, who else? People with things like schizophrenia, ADHD. I've been very fortunate as a monk because I'm the one who decides who I'm going to ordain, who I'm not going to ordain. And I've given ordination to 2 schizophrenics. And they're wonderful. You would never know that they're on clozapine. That's one of the drugs which schizophrenics have to take. And they're beautiful monks. So it's amazing when you give people a chance, they live up to it. So please don't discriminate against some people because of where they come from. And even to people who have been in jail, ex-prisoners. And somehow or other, what they did in the past, they're stuck with for life, even though they will never do that thing again. And so because of that, I'm very happy to have so many ex-prisoners, murderers, rapists, as my friends. Sometimes I thought anyone who's been in jail for fraud would make a wonderful treasurer. They know how to raise money for our temples and for the biff. But do it in an honest way. So that's actually just how I feel. Just don't be so judgmental about people you meet. Okay, that sometimes when these things happen, you have some gifts. You can't expect them to last forever. So I can't expect my joke telling to last forever. After a while, people know all the jokes. But anyhow, seeing people's auras, it can be helpful, but it can also be a bit intrusive. Because it's their private lives. And you don't want to intrude on their private lives without their permission. Just like if I did read your minds. That's an intrusive, that's your personal space. And it's not correct to intrude on people's personal space. And so, if you can't see people's auras, you can at least see your life and your aura and how you are, and just make sure that you're a kind and beautiful being. And then whoever you meet here in Hong Kong or anywhere else in the world, you can actually share that goodness and the kindness, and that's your gift to them. That'll be fine. If you want the aura to come back, it never will. If you don't mind either way, then it's got a good chance of coming back. When you want something, it doesn't come. Some of these blessings actually work, and I've seen it too often because I was a theoretical physicist. All of my beliefs are evidence-based. It doesn't work for everybody, but it works for enough people, it's worth it. Sabba Buddha Nubhavena Sabba Dhamma Nubhavena Sabba Sangha Nubhavena Buddha Ratanang Dhamma Ratanang Sangha Ratanang Tinnang Ratananang Anubhavena Chaturasiti Sahasa Dhamma Kanda Nubhavena Pitakataya Nubhavena Jina Sawaka Nubhavena Sabete Roga Sabete Baya Sabete Antaraya Sabete Upadava sabete dudnimita sabete avamangala vina santu ayuvadako dhanavadako sirivadako yasavadako balavadako sukhavadako hotu sabada dukkha roga bhaya vera sukha satu chupadava anekantaraya pivinasantu chate jasa jaya siddhi danang labang soti bhagayang sukhang balang siriya yucha vano cha bhogang vuddhi cha yasava satavasa cha ayu cha jiva siddhi bhavantu te.